So, how we all doing today? It's good to see y'all. It's been a minute, but back like we're never left, right? But it's all right. Let's just jump right into it. You know, people will ask you, or you will freely, divulge some information about, what you like to eat, like what's your favorite meal, or what's your favorite type of food. What do you like to drink? Are you a beer person? Do you like wine, mixed drinks, whatever the case? You have your specific taste about something, and people will ask you about it, and a lot of times you really don't have a difficult time, giving up that kind of information, and that's okay. That's perfectly fine. But one thing that maybe, and you guys can correct me about this, which is why we have these discussions. Is it just me, or if somebody were to ask you specifically, or if you were to ask somebody specifically, hey, what kind of person do you prefer to date? Do you only like to date white people if you're African American? Or if you're a white person, do you only like to date Asian people? Or does it not matter to you? That kind of thing. It seems like if you were to ask somebody, just based on my personal experience, with multiples of encounters with people, is that they would have a problem with that, or they would be kind of like taken aback to it. Like, if I was to, me as a guy, okay, if I was to go up to a girl, and let's just say, there's a girl I know that, this is hypothetical, by the way. If I know a girl and she's always posting pictures of herself, like at like a sushi restaurant, I'm gonna assume that she likes that kind of food, right? She's once or twice or three times a week, she's always posting something at a sushi place. She's getting her eat on. I'm not a sushi guy, so I don't really know what the names of things are, but I know what things look like. So if I see it, I'm just like, oh wow, she must really like Asian food, or she must really like sushi, or whatever the case. So she's always posting pictures of it or videos wherever she's at, and that's what she likes to eat, right? Over the course of time, if I've seen the same person, if I've seen her only date white guys, let's just say she's Persian, okay? This is all hypothetical, by the way. Let's just say she's a Persian girl. Her parents are Persian, so she's Persian, and she's only ever dated white guys her whole, like, at least publicly anyway, that she's been willing to show across any kind of social medium. That's probably going to be a general consensus on that's what she prefers to date, right? So if I was to go up to her and say, hey girl, you must really like sushi. I see you post a lot of stuff about you being at a specific type of sushi restaurant, or you go to multiple different kinds of sushi restaurants to get like a different flavor. Maybe one restaurant's better than the other. So maybe, let's say, over the course of like 6 years or so, she's dated, maybe not seriously, but at least seriously enough to post across social media. She's dated only white guys. Maybe she's dated like 4 different white guys in the past like 6 years. Now, like I said, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm very much a heavy proponent of, you know, you don't have to only date like within your race or ethnicity or anything like that. I'm not that kind of person that has a problem with that. But if I was to go up to that same girl and say, "Hey, girl, you only date white guys, huh? Or you only your desire is to only have like white guys on top of you in bed, huh?" Like if I was to say something like that, I mean, number one, it's probably some form of sexual harassment. So I would, and I'm not laughing at sexual harassment, by the way. Let's get that very clear. But if I was to say something like that, the general idea is that she would most likely be offended by me even bringing up the notion that I'm concerned about, you know, who she dates. And it's not so much that I'm concerned about who she dates. It's more that I'm just pointing out the, you know, the connecting of dots that I've seen, the commonality of her dating, at least the public, you know, portion of what she's shown in the dating realm, that she's only dated white guys. So if I was to say, "Hey, girl, you only date white guys, huh?" Now, if I was to ask her, like, "Hey, girl, you really like sushi, huh? Like, you're always, you know, eating out of some sushi places." Like, "Yeah, you know, I like different, you know, sushi places, this and that. Really, it's really a good taste to me." And, you know, people don't have a problem talking about what kind of food they like to eat. But when you bring up the notion of, "Hey, girl, you only like to date white guys, huh?" Like I said, it's all hypothetical. Then that kind of immediately would become a problem. Like, what is the difference? And keep in mind, everybody has their own, you know, opinions. So like I said, if you guys have something to, you know, further dwell on this topic, please, by all means, let me know. There's a comment section right there. It goes straight to, I get the notifications, so let's talk about it. But it seems like people think that that's off limits. Now, and don't get me wrong, that's perfectly fine. But it seems like there's more of a comfort to talking about what specific desire you have as far as, you know, culinary, you know, topics go. But when it comes to who you prefer to involve yourself with, in an amorous, you know, way, then all of a sudden, like, that's private. That can't be known. That's fine, but it's like you put it out there. You know, you have no problem showing it. You know, 1 or 2 or 3 or maybe possibly we're going into this 4th time, like in 6 years. Keep in mind, it's all hypothetical. I've completely made the stuff up in my head. There's no specific example I'm citing here. But if you think I'm speaking to something that you can relate to, that you've possibly seen, that closely mirrors this description, then by all means, that's kind of where it's coming from. But or say, and I'll be honest, this kind of comes from the stereotype that, you know, like a lot of black guys like to date white girls, which, you know, I think is just a stereotype. I think it's just a myth, to be honest. Yeah, now, don't get me wrong, there probably are a lot of black dudes, African-American guys out there that only like to date white girls. They will have absolutely nothing to do with dating another African-American woman. I mean, there are some guys out there like that. Now, I'm not saying that's a problem. It's a problem to some people, apparently. But, I mean, I really don't have a problem with it. If that's who you like, then that's who you like. Some people like to eat burgers and wouldn't dare touch a salad. You know, will never eat one salad in their life, even though a salad's probably good for you. And I say probably because most people would probably say that it is, but some people may not agree. But at the same time, just because you only want to eat burgers and not a salad does not mean there's anything wrong with that. That is your choice, and you are free to make that choice. But I'm guessing that if somebody was to, go out and say, I only like to eat burgers and I don't like to eat salad, there wouldn't be a huge uproar, or there wouldn't be a good furor going about, making a big deal about something like that. But if an African American guy was to go out and say, I'm an African American guy and I only want to date white girls, I don't want to date African American women, I don't like African American women, even though my mom is probably African American, but I don't want to date an African American woman. I want nothing to do with them. I only like white girls. That's what I like to be with. And you might get a little bit of, dissension when it comes to something like that. And I'm not saying that's cool or that's acceptable, but that's probably what's going to happen across the board. And I don't really think that's fair. Now, do you think that's fair? Because everybody has their own desire, right? Like if a white dude only wants to date Hispanic women, he don't like white girls. That's his thing. A white girl, she don't want to date, or she won't date an Asian guy, but she'll date an Australian. Or I guess Australians are white, but there's different types of. Or she only wants to date a Middle Eastern Indian kind of guy. You can date whoever you want. You can prefer to be with whoever you want. And I don't really think that's a problem. I mean, I don't think that's a problem. But if somebody was to ask you, like, hey, girl, I've noticed, or, two homeboys could be talking to each other, like, two Hispanic guys can talk to each other, and one of them says, hey man, you only date black women, or you only date white women, I've never seen you date another Hispanic woman, do you not like Hispanic women, or something of that nature. And I don't really think anybody has to explain themselves, but at the same time, it seems like people get offended when you point out something like that too. Like, you point out that that's only what they've seen about you. And if it was about food, like, hey man, you eat McDonald's every day, you got something against Burger King? No, you prefer McDonald's. Now, if you've seen the movie Super Size Me, if you eat McDonald's every day, that could be a little bit different. But getting off topic here, if that's what you choose to do, then that's fine. But I just don't understand why there's a huge, at least perception-wise, a huge offense level if somebody was to ask you about it. Like, if somebody was to come up to me and say, hey, Mateo, you only date, light-skinned black girls. You don't like dark-skinned black girls, or you only date Middle Eastern women. You got something against, Hispanic women, or whatever. It has nothing to do with what I prefer. If that's just what's happened, then that's fine. But there are some people that will only specifically date a certain kind of person that isn't completely matched with their own ethnicity. And like I said, that's fine. But if somebody was to ask them about that, there seems to be like there would be some offense taken to it. But at the same time, if you ask somebody like, hey man, you're always drinking Coke, like you don't like to drink Pepsi, and people will have a talk about it, like they won't feel offended because that's what they, even though that's what they prefer. If somebody was to point that out, they'd be like, yeah, well, I like, Coke because I don't like the way Pepsi has an aftertaste, or whatever. But if you were to say, if you were to go up like to a white person who only dates, African American people, you would say, hey, I've noticed that you only date African American people. Like, you don't like other ethnicities, or you don't want to date any other ethnicities or anything like that. And people will like really get like almost shocked and offended sometimes. Like you can't talk about that kind of subject. Now I understand it is personal, but what is the difference of personal level when it comes to, your dating preference and your food preference? It's what you want to do with your life, right? I mean, I understand it is an apples and oranges kind of thing, but there is like a huge division. I mean, a huge division between them. And sure, there's a line that maybe you don't or shouldn't cross, but at the same time, what makes one or the other fair game and not fair game to be discussed? Now, don't get me wrong, some people won't mind discussing, those topics, but like I said, there's a huge division. If somebody says, like, I only want to eat Italian food because I don't like Mexican food, I mean, that's not a big deal. It's not a big deal to me. I mean, you don't like Mexican food, you don't like tacos and burritos and enchiladas and tortas and all that stuff, and sopes, hey, that's fine. You're missing out on quite a bit, but you got your preference. You like your lasagna, you like your spaghetti, you like your calzone, you like your pizza, all that stuff. Hey, I like it too. But if you don't like anything else and that's all you like, then that's fine. That's your preference. I'm not going to call you out on it. And you probably wouldn't be offended if I, said, hey, why don't you like Mexican food? Why do you only like to eat Italian food? People wouldn't be offended by that. But if I said, hey, how come you only like to date white girls, like if you're a black dude, or if you're a Hispanic chick and you only like to date, black dudes, or if you're a Middle Eastern dude and you only like to date, white girls with blonde hair and blue eyes, like that is your deal and you will not waver from that. Like, that's what you want to do, like that's fine. But if I said, hey man, I've noticed you only like to date, white girls with blonde hair and blue eyes, is there something wrong, like with a nice Hispanic chick with light brown hair and brown eyes? Like, that's their desire to not want to date anything outside of what they prefer, just like you don't want to eat anything outside of Italian food. The lasagna, that's your thing, and you won't be bothered with beans and rice with some sour cream on the side. That is not what you're gonna do, like, ever, hell or high water. But people won't like talking about it, and I just want to know, like really, like, what's the difference? Like, if it's personal to you, then that's fine, but you have your own preferences and a bunch of stuff. But when it comes to like who you choose to date and everything, I just think that people have this real wall in front of them that they don't want people to like violate. But when it comes to their culinary taste, it's like, oh yeah, let's talk about that. Like that's fine. Honestly, if you're gonna talk about stuff, then you can talk about it all. You can be all the way private, or you could be all the way out there. People can choose to talk about whatever they want. They can choose to eat whatever they want. They can choose to date whoever they want. And I'm not going to have a single problem with it. If you're not harming me or your fellow person, like I've mentioned this before, if you've watched any of these videos, as long as you don't harm me, you don't harm my children, and you don't harm any other fellow humans out there, I really don't have any issues with what anybody does out in this world. But we can talk about stuff. Like I said, if there's no way to communicate amongst one another, then how can we progress, right? But like I said, give me some thoughts. if you feel free. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I always got to throw that out there. And if not, hey, no problem, no big deal. But like I said, if you guys want to talk about this, let's try to, create something to where maybe this could be a more open source discussion. Hey, I'm always here. If anything else comes up, or if there's anything that maybe I didn't touch on, let me know, and maybe we could do a follow-up, part 2 kind of thing, and we'll go from there. So this is me signing off, and I'll let y'all get back to your regularly scheduled programming.